right, welcome back, everyone. That was a very confident win by the team. We saw Rossi's talk a little bit about his strat during that, and I do like that one of our three-man teams just came into this tournament so confident on that RMD.
Yeah, there are advantages, too, to having one comp. You just got to nail it down for everything. Obviously, RMD being very universal, but at the same time, every single game as they practiced was Rogue Mage Druid, whereas Luminosity, they had to spread their line thin. They needed to have LST3, they needed to have Turbo, maybe some experimental demonology specs, and you might have spread yourself too thin with that many different kind of compositions. Regardless, we're going to take a look at the bracket up to date now, as we are going to be going back to Group A. We saw Hype versus Method, and Method taking a 2-0 lead. They're going to be moving to the winners. We're going to determine their opponent now. FollowESports.com versus Tempo Storm, and the winner of that will fight against Method, whereas the loser will go down and fight against the Australian-New Zealand team Hype. Now, FollowESports.com was recently sponsored by FollowESports, and that's going to be Avsurge's Jungle Cleave. But speaking about that a little bit later, we've got Group B now. We've seen Juveniles versus Luminosity, and Juveniles taking that series very cleanly, 2-0, moving themselves into the winners semifinals. Now we've got Dream Deferred versus Santos Dexterity, that is the Brazil representative, versus Jeff's Death Knight team, the only Death Knight in the tournament, which will be battling it out later when we bring back Lore and Venruki. So this is our updated bracket, and now moving forward through, we're going to take a look at the rules. So how about you tell us a little bit about that, VL?
Well, we've been doing the 3v3 tournament. You guys have known this. As you can see, 3 people in each team. But we had that 4-man roster, which didn't come into play with that RMD, which is really interesting to see. And of course, we are going to be starting every match on the Grand Arena. And then the loser of that first map gets to pick the next map. Then the winner picks their comp, and then the loser picks their comp. So a little mind games going on with the Grand Arena, because it is double blind pick. And speaking of the double blind pick, we have our teams that are going to be going into the Grand Arena. Of course, that is going to be Tempo Storm versus FollowESports. And it looks like Tempo Storm is going to go with the comp, which we thought they were going to, which is going to be that RMD. So we're going to be seeing another version of that. Of course, Peekaboo is going to be playing sub also, so we do know that all the rogues in this tournament are versatile enough to play all 3 specs of rogues, but they really like sub because of that Shadow Dance. So I'm glad to see that they're sticking with their guns as sub.
Yeah, the North American rogues love the subtlety, but let's talk about money, cash money, prizes. First place in today's tournament is going to be $50,000. Second place, $20,000. Third place, $10,000. Fourth place, $8,000. Fifth and sixth, $6,000 or $4,000. Sorry. Seventh and eighth, $2,000. So even if you end up losing everything, you get to walk away with something. Definitely don't get to keep your pride. However, all these teams are going to be battling it out to their best extent to take that grand prize, and most importantly, the 3 tickets to BlizzCon. However, we're going to be moving into the next series here when they are ready to go, which will be shortly. And as Vihel was saying, it would appear that Jamili, Peekaboo, and Starship are going to be running their standard Rogue Mage Restoration Druid with the subtlety spec. A bit unexpected. I guess they were reading a bit of a mind game. I feel like combat might have been a little bit safer into the Jungle Cleave, but FollowESports throwing a curveball, and they're going to be leading with Feral, Warlock, Resto Shaman. So they qualified here in the third club, playing almost exclusively Jungle Cleave. Now they're going to get to showcase their player Vossel on Affliction Warlock. How do you think they're going to stack up against Tempo Storm?
I think it's going to be a tough matchup. They're definitely afraid of Tempo Storm, just listening to the players talk about it in the practice area and stuff. RMD is scary. Every team is really worried about when they're going to be facing the RMDs in the brackets. So if I have to go into this and make a prediction, I think Tempo Storm, it's probably going to take this series.
Yeah, definitely. And we do have a promotional code. If anybody would like to take advantage of that watching, you can go to the Blizzard store and use the code WOWRTB15, and you use that at the checkout. So if you're a fan of plushies, if you want to buy everything in the store and you want to get a discount, use that code and you will be able to. We are still waiting for the teams to give us the go-ahead, but once again, it's a blind pick. We were already talking about that. First map is going to be in the Grand Arena. In my opinion, I think that Tempo Storm has the advantage here compositionally. Recently, Warlocks received a bit of a nerf, which they're going to have to adapt to and deal with. Now, we have got the chance to see Black Jeff's team, the Death Knight team, fight against RMD, and they had a lot of interesting challenges, but they adapted with some different spec changes. So I'm curious to see if there's going to be any unique spec choices for Wallabear or for Vossel or even Absterge to try and deal with this Rogue Mage aggression, and that's what their name of the game is going to be. I think Jamili is notorious for being the most aggressive mage in the ladder in North America, and they need to play to their advantage. Now we can see on screen playing Starship, the closest player, Jamili, the center player, and we've got Peekaboo, of course, carrying in the back, playing that subtlety Rogue, and that is Tempo Storm of the United States. They're going to be playing Rogue Mage Druid. Moving forward to the opposing team, FollowESports. That is going to be Absturge on Resto Shaman, Walter Bear on Feral Druid, and Fossil on Affliction Warlock. But I believe Tempo Storm feeling very confident in this tournament, much like Juveniles. They think that they can take it if they play well.
Yeah, and that's the name of the game for these teams. Of course, FollowESports, we can't count them out yet because, of course, Absturge, just an amazing shaman. We see him showing up constantly on the online tournaments, really making a name for himself in the field of lots of shamans. Because, of course, going into qualifying from the online qualifiers, he played some excellent games during that to secure his team the victory. And of course, Walter Bear playing that Feral Druid and Vossel on the Affliction Warlock, sticking to his guns on Warlock, even though they did have those nerfs that we were talking about. We'll have to see if maybe they'll be throwing a little spec changes in. Maybe he can play some Demonology here and there. I mean, it's great to see. And have you ever seen Ferals and Demonology Warlocks play together?
I know there's one team distinctly Dana owns plays Destro Feral, but I've not personally seen Demonology Feral. It would be a first time. But for this first game, we do have them playing the safe pick, the Affliction Warlock, not going to be experimenting on anything. And this team is very successful on the ladder, and they battled it out against what they considered a lot of hard opponents throughout the third qualifying cup to make it here. I'm still interested to see why they wanted to lead with the Feral Lock Shaman. I wonder what kind of mind game went through that. Maybe they were afraid of a potential H-Pal Shatter from Tempo Storm. Peekaboo has been practicing his Shadow Priest, so they didn't want to expose the Jungle Cleave. Maybe that's their backup gun. They're going to lead with this comp. It's a little bit safer in the sense that they just kind of passively want to do damage and roll through the game like that, so there's a lot less stress. But we do have an interview for both of these teams to see how they think this matchup's going to go.
Tempo Storm's a good team, but in all honesty, I think Jaw's going to choke. Mainly because every other tournament, he pretty much does the same thing. He kind of plays kind of crappy, so we'll have to see.
You're just going to think they're garbage. And we'd probably just win every game flawlessly in the opener. In the very beginning, right when the gates open, we're just going to win.
As every comp.
Pretty sure they lied.
Yeah, that's going to be hard to believe. I wouldn't say, I don't think they'd be as confident as into our team, because I would say we'd probably have better chances, and I think they probably know that too. So I think their confidence is going to be a little bit fake.
What about them? They don't do anything, and we're the best. Like, look at us.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Jelly Rogue is a lot better than Pika.
Yeah, 10 times, 100 million.
So they're probably just making that up.
Yeah, I think we should win the matchup, really. But
I honestly don't think it matters what Tempo Storm plays. They're going to lose.
Well, you heard it from those two teams. Little trash talk back and forth is healthy to see before these matchups, but it kind of seemed like a little false trash talk from FollowESports. We know that they're afraid of Tempo Storm, but that said, in recent online tournaments, we've seen Jamili have some problems. Whether he bet everything on those offensive blocks that we've seen before. So we'll have to see how well he can play, because this is his game to win at this point. He's got arguably the comp advantage going into this. It's against the team, FollowESports, which are, relatively new. We were talking about Absturge being this great shaman, but playing with that Warlock and the Feral Druid. So, it's a well-rounded team, and if some team can take points off of Tempo Storm, it might be this team. I bet they've been practicing, and they knew they were going to play against Tempo Storm at some point.
Yeah, and they are actually, in fact, playing Horde, so a lot of players have decided to transition over to the Horde faction, take advantage of the new racial buffs that they received. So we're going to be seeing a Troll Feral Druid and a Orc Shaman to prevent any Resto Shaman swaps. And Vossel actually playing Blood Elf, so he's going to get extra silence, but the game has already started. Vossel into a sap. They're going right after Absturge, it would appear, and he's going to gateway away to safety. Jamili in hot pursuit. Shadow Dance is still up. Peekaboo trying to output some pressure now onto Vossel, trying to find a target, really. Walter landing a full clone on a Starship, but Death from above comes crashing through. Nice timed Aura Mastery heal from Absturge, though, is going to top off Vossel. Now we see pressure rolling. FollowESports taking a bit of a lead. Starship has to use that Iron Bark. He has to use the Nature's Vigil to recover through this damage, and Vossel hasn't even used a Dark Soul.
No, he hasn't. As we saw the Hex come out on to Jamili, and it's interesting that you said that Vossel hasn't used the Dark Soul yet. I'm wondering what they're choosing to set up with this, because Walter Bear does have his Incarnation up right now. It would only make sense that they would layer those two together.
Yeah, definitely want to be layering them together. And then we can see the Dark Soul towards the end of the Incarnation, and Iron Bark is still not up, so there's going to be a lot more pressure onto Jamili. We see him going for the Deep Freeze. He lands the Sheep. They're trying to make a 3v1 setup onto Walter, but with no CC onto Vossel, he used that Blood Elf Silence to interrupt incoming CC. Excellent use from Vossel. Now a lot of pressure coming out from him. Drain Soul and Haunt up onto Jamili. Starship actually Bark's getting there as well. Jamili dipping dangerously low at 29%, bravely holding onto his Ice Block, but Walter doing a great job to spread the pressure onto Peekaboo as well. Always swapping targets and making Starship fall behind. We see the full bash. Can he land the clone? The smoke bomb gets dropped. Walter's aggression is getting punished hard, but he gets that survival instincts up just in the nick of time to reduce the damage. It's still a 3v1 situation. He's got to be careful. Absterge leaving that CC, pops the Ascendance, catches a big Riptide, stabilizing Walter. Now they're going on offense. Vossel goes for the Shadow Fury, not able to get the full fear. Jamili counterspelling him out and saving Starship through that crowd control.
All right, now Walter Bear is going to try to stick to his target right now. Has a long time on that Incarnation, which is definitely his burst. As we see the Cyclone come out on to Absterge, but knowing that it was coming, actually toss it down the Spirit Link right before. As you see him swapping around his Earth Shield, he has it up on Walter Bear right now. The second Dark Soul comes out from Vossel now, and you can see the dots are really starting to work. As you see, he has them up on both Jamili and Starship at this point. You know, not able to land any onto Peekaboo just quite yet. But look at how the Tempo Storm is just forcing FollowESports to play defensive at this point.
Yeah, they got the Trinket Link out of Absterge, which is his big line of defense, so they realize they need to kind of turtle it out. But now we see Walter leaping to the center field, gets a pound stun onto Starship, full dots loaded up. Vossel doing a great job, despite not having a lot of land experience. He's doing a great job to keep his dots up, keep his Soulburn Haunts rolling. But here comes the Shadow Dance setup. Once again, Walter Bear, pre-survival instincts on the Shadow Dance is going to reduce all that damage. Now he's going to be able to stay offensive here onto Jamili, it would appear, trying to keep bleeds onto Peekaboo as well, throwing out a little bit of a root there. Unfortunately going to be breaking to Vossel's dots. Now a Haunt connecting onto Peekaboo as well as Jamili. Walter Bear a little bit cautious to push forward. His team has no trinkets available.
Yeah, as you see him just stopping and starting to cast a Cyclone even, as right in Jamili's face, as we see again that stun onto Starship. They're going to set up onto Jamili, who's down to half, and that Iron Bark comes out yet again. The Comet Store comes crashing into Walter Bear as we see another Dark Soul come out. The Cyclone on top, and I like that they look at this crowd control onto FollowESports right now. The entire team was controlled during their burst.
Yep, definitely. Incarnation coming up in 8 seconds. Walter can't afford to die here. He needs to retreat. Lands the bash on the Peekaboo. Running out of line of sight. Jamili going for more polymorphs onto Vossel. It's still 3v1. Walter is completely alone and in the dark. Peekaboo is going to secure game number 1. The confidence definitely there for them, and they're going to take game 1. And this is a best of 3 series. FollowESports are against the wall. And what do you do in this position?
It's rough. That crowd control, I mean, that was incredible. The big part right there was, of course, Absterge was kind of out in the middle. And I really liked that Tempo Storm really switched up their positioning. Let's take it away with Bajira to give us a little more insight into what happened.
All right, so once again, we see an RMD in Tempo Storm that definitely knows what they're doing. The interesting thing is that they were a bit on their back foot, it seemed like, in their health bars. However, just because you're at half health against an FLS definitely doesn't mean you're out of it, especially if you're Tempo Storm RMD. So one of the things you can look at here is just, once again, you get a half poly into a quarter poly. Out of that poly, you get a full blind, and at that point, with Wallabear trying to flee for his life and Absterge stuck in a full blind with nothing he can do, it is definitely a grim scenario for FollowESports. So the curious thing is going to be, do they switch up their comp? Do they play that jungle cleave? You know, they've got one game, they've got to win this next one, or they're going to get knocked down. And that decision, well, let's see what they choose to do next. But until then, we'll throw it back to the casters.
All right, thank you very much, Bajira, for that additional insight into that last match. I mean, Tempo Storm really took that map by storm.
Yeah, they definitely did. And we can see the map selection actually for FollowESports is going to be Dalaran Sewers. It's much more friendly to Warlocks, Warriors. They want the small map so that they can stay together, because we can see once you get isolated, dragged into the open, that's when they're going to crowd control you to death. So this map is going to not allow so much escape. We can see Tempo Storm now locking in their composition here into game number 2. They're going to be sticking to their guns. Rogue Mage Druid with subtlety. And we see FollowESports as well going to be sticking to their compositions. Jelly Beans is going to be on the bench for a little bit longer here, relying on his team to carry it forward with the Feral Lock Shaman composition.
Yeah, and I mean, it's great to see these teams confident about their main comp going into it. Of course, like we said before, there are some RMDs that are super duper confident in their comp, but you got to give it to Absterge, Walter Bear, and Vossel. They've been playing that FLS for a really long time at this point, and they just do such an amazing job. I think just maybe a little bit of lapse in communication on that last match may have happened. The triple CC was just way too deadly for them at the end.
Yeah, I appreciate Vossel's patience. Usually you see like Warlocks just want to kind of pad the meter, get as much global cooldown usage as possible, but saving those 2 Dark Souls, it actually baited some cooldowns out from Starship.
It did, and I liked that they held it for the Ironbark. Maybe they could have forced an Ironbark even without the Incarnation, and that just would have sealed the deal even more. But it probably was the Incarnation that forced that anyway.
Yeah, the Incarnation was a bit not mistimed so much, but you definitely want to coordinate Incarnation with at least 1 Dark Soul.
Yeah.
Usually what you would expect from the Feral Lock Shaman is Vossel leads with 1 Dark Soul, forces a Barkskin, forces a Vigil. Now once those are gone, he uses his 2nd Dark Soul paired along with Incarnation, whereas this strategy that they used last time was Walter Bear led with his highest cooldown, and they got cooldowns out, but not a lot of scary damage, and that's what you need to do to pressure RMD back and hold them against the wall. We see Vossel coming out of the pipe, securing his gateway as Tempo Storm leading in very aggressively here, landing the sap onto Absterge. Who are they going to open on? Cheap shot onto Vossel. I imagine they're trying to find Walter. He's going for an early Cyclone, lands it onto Peekaboo, and that's going to diffuse the opening pressure a lot.
That was a great Cyclone. I'm glad that he came out immediately with the Cyclone, but of course Starship, realizing that Walter Bear is out of stealth and tosses his own. The Shadow Dance comes out from Peekaboo. Let's see if they can make some damage happen. Doesn't look like a lot is going out just quite yet. Lots of control, though, with the Garrote into Cheap Shot on Vossel. They're just really trying to shut down that damage of that Dark Soul. This is great plays by Tempo Storm early into this match.
Yeah, we see Vossel strategically leading with that Dark Soul, but not baiting too much out, only the Nature's Vigil of Starship. We see a Haunt landed onto Peekaboo. Vossel doing a great job once again to keep his pressure rolling. Now soul swapping dots onto Starship. I'm curious if they're going to go after him. Starship and Jamili are positioned defensively. We see Peekaboo questioning, pulling back as well. They might attack the Warlock pet a little bit. There might be an issue with one of the teams as well here, and I'm really curious if Tempo Storm are going to wait, because I mean, there's a lot of money on the line. Do you just take it at this point?
Yeah, I think they're going to wait it out just a little bit at this point. That was a good opener, though. I liked that Vossel went with, we were just talking about how great they held the Dark Soul for, and they actually chose to go the opposite this time. Vossel really out of the gate wanted to just use that Dark Soul immediately from the start. I liked the Walter Bear tossing out the Cyclone right from the start to stop Peekaboo. I think that was a great play instead of just going extremely offensive from the start. So I thought overall FollowESports was sitting in a pretty good position. We saw Jamili immediately trinket out of some CC also. He got a Cyclone tossed on him also. So, I mean, overall, I think that at the beginning of that match, FollowESports looked a lot better than in the last match.
Yeah, Walter is really the defense for their team. That Cyclone is the only reliable crowd control they have to stop incoming damage. Vossel's fears are going to break almost instantly if he is playing correctly and efficiently. He should have dots on all 3 targets. Unfortunately, it looked like FollowESports were looking to set something up with that next Dark Soul Incarnation. Unfortunately, going to be paused out for a moment here as we wait for them to reconnect. Tempo Storm patiently waiting as well. Can appreciate the camaraderie amongst the teams to want to play out all of these games legitimately.
Yeah, and it's great to see how well Tempo Storm is doing. At the end of that last match, we saw a couple flashy plays from Peekaboo with that Death from Above, and he's been using that like absolutely flawlessly. It's great that an ability like that, when you see the high-end rogues play, they not only do use it for damage, because when you see those big eviscerate numbers on the scoreboard, but he also uses it for mobility at the time when you wouldn't expect him needing to burst. So we see some some Shadow Step into Death from Above coming all the way across the map. So it's great to see those high-end rogues play.
Yeah, the additional flashiness too. It's a Peekaboo kind of trait to be as flashy as possible, and Death from Above really allows him to showcase that. But I appreciate Walter playing very well defensively, but I think we're going to be ending this game. Jamili impatiently does not want to wait any longer, and is going to be ending the game. We're going to get confirmation in regards to the follow-up to this, and we're just going to take a quick look at it.
Yeah, they'll just reset and we'll play this match again, I assume, as Tempo Storm up 1-0, so it's a scary situation for Walter Bear and Vossels. So, what do you do as FollowESports after that first map happened? And you may have had a good opener in Dalaran Sewers. What do you think they are thinking about maybe maybe a strat change? Like, is there anything that they can do as this setup against the RMD?
Well, obviously, they don't feel confident with jungle cleave, and I'm surprised by that. I mean, maybe it might have a comp disadvantage, but it really seemed like their bread and butter, at least throughout the qualifying cups. Maybe at this point, they can't change to it, so they're stuck with this. So strategically, what do they need to do to win this game? They need to make sure that the incarnation of Walter Bear is not crowd controlled. They need to make sure that he's not has a stun DR available. So basically, what they need to wait for is allow Tempo Storm to attack, lull them in as far as possible. As soon as you've exposed them, survive the attack, then turn it around, pop Incarnation Dark Soul, and make them retreat, chase after them, and hunt them down on that offensive push. And you've got maybe 22 seconds to do it, and you've got to do it every time if you want to take them down.
I think that's the big thing that you noted right at the end, is that they need to consistently do this every time. They need to play defensive while their incarnation is not up. We saw Walter Bear doing a pretty good job of that, and we saw the survival instincts just hit at the very precise moments during that Grand Arena. So he was playing great during that match. We just need to see all three team members just play at their very highest game to be able to take down this team of Tempo Storm.
Yeah, and they're always going to be looking to shut down Jamili. Obviously, looking for those deep freeze polymorphs, potentially frost jaws as well. And what he has to deal with is the counterspell out from Vossel, the skull bash out from Walter Bear, potential preemptive grounding totems from Absurge as well. There's a lot for Jamili to deal with, and it can be stressful when you're in those situations. And sometimes you choose to just offensively block, access the ice block glyph, which makes you immune to magic effects. So you're immune to the counterspell out from Vossel. You're immune to the Blood Elf silence, even as we can see in this game here. Vossel knows that he's not going to be a primary target, so he's trying to get access to a little bit more utility. So smart pick from Vossel from FollowESports. Strategically, last game it looked pretty good, but they just ran out of trinkets, ran out of cooldowns, and ran out of time. Now here on the second map, Dalaran Sewers, they could extend the game a little bit further, and they definitely need to.
All right, while we're waiting for this just a minute, let's hear from, of course, Bajira, who was watching the same game as us. What do you think was different in that second game versus the first in the opener, Bajira?
So we've seen a lot of the teams who lose their initial match decide to bring it over to Dalaran Sewers. And, tournament level RMD is a really tough comp to fight against, no matter what. But one of the interesting things about FLS is that insane spread pressure. Now, we did see the Warlocks get nerfed just a little bit last patch, but I'm wondering if they bring it to a little bit of a closer knit map, a little bit tighter battle quarters, they're wondering if they can't spread those dots around a little bit better. Also, potentially, if Wallabear has to overextend to go attack the RMD, potentially it leaves him a little bit closer to Absurge, so Absurge can, if things come to worst, drop that Spirit Link, top him off, and let him get back in the action. Now, one of the things about Feral Druids is that they don't have a whole lot of cooldowns on their own at their disposal, so they really do need to work alongside their teammates. So I'm wondering if that Dalaran Sewers map really is both offensive and defensive map choice, and it seemed to be going pretty well for them initially. I think we're about ready to start that next game, though, so we should probably throw it back to the casters and get that going for you guys.
All right, thank you very much, Bajir. We're going to let those teams get ready and get their computers all set back up. Of course, right now, if you just tuned in, it is going to be Tempo Storm is up 1-0 over FollowESports. They won on the Grand Arena. FollowESports stuck to their guns with their comp, though. I like to see the confidence, even though the first map really was almost one-sided for Tempo Storm.
Yep, and we do actually, in fact, have a surprise interview. Brian Hinka has stopped by here during this downtime to entertain us a little bit here. The surprise factor is going to be pretty big when he does, in fact, arrive for the time being. We can talk a little bit more about strategy. Vossel, Walter, and Absturge, they need to coordinate through their trinkets effectively. If Absturge and Walter Bear overlap their trinkets, that is an exposure that Tempo Storm are going to take the most advantage of. And you can appreciate Tempo Storm, even on the big stage, playing so aggressively and keeping their momentum throughout.
Yeah, they really need to, and the big thing is momentum. FollowESports needs to ride the waves of their cooldowns, basically. They need to sit and play defensive when they're not up, and they really, really need to push when they have those cooldowns available. Of course, Tempo Storm, though, when you have someone like Starship at the helm of your team, he's going to be the one that's identifying when the enemy team is going offensive. He's going to be able to break it up with those Cyclones. So he really shut down the offensive push right from the start on that Dalaran and Sewers map.
Yep, and you can appreciate Walter Bear as well, playing defensively, leading from stealth with the Cyclone. A bit unexpected. Usually Feral Druids just want to get into the action, start stunning out their targets and applying bleeds, but he was playing well defensively, starting with the Cyclone onto Peekaboo. And what that does is, subtly rogues have an ability called Find Weakness, so when they open from stealth, they expose a lot of armor on their target, and that doesn't last forever. So if you can crowd control them during that Find Weakness debuff, you reduce a lot of burst. But regardless, our interview is ready. Bajira, let's throw it over to you.
Hey guys, what a pleasant surprise. I'm joined once again by Brian Hinka. Last time we talked about WoD, and then we talked a little bit about Legion, but today, I think the topic of discussion, rightly so, is these America's Regionals 3v3 arena matches. What have you seen so far that you've liked, and who are your favorites in the tournament, perhaps?
Well, it's been tremendous. It's been great to watch everybody competing here. Obviously seeing strong teams like Method do so well, seeing juveniles kind of come out and do what you guys were talking about, which is prove themselves. Prove that, hey, despite that we're kind of a young and new team, we're here to play, we're representing ourselves well, and they definitely performed really great. So I think that was awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing some more matches. But really what I'm most happy about is, going back there in the player area, seeing all of them huddled around the couch. That's kind of what is important to us. What's important to me is that this is a great event for those guys who are all probably chuckling right now at this bit. But I really, it's special for them to all get together, to be able to experience this together, have a fun time, make new friends, and have a really good time as a part of the regional event.
Yeah, I can attest to that on a personal note. I've been playing WoW for a long time, love the game, but I've never been to a LAN event. Yeah. So walking into the, yesterday, 2 days ago, walking into the ESL practice room, you have tables all set up, all the players gaming it up, practicing, some of them just hanging out, getting to know each other, and that has been an absolutely amazing experience. And then you walk into this studio where they're once again practicing, getting to know each other a little bit better, and the energy is palpable. And today is a great day for some WoW 3v3 arenas. But I'm definitely with you on the fact that the players are getting acclimated to the environments. They're really stepping up to the plate in a tournament setting. And it's great to see that. So that being said, when you have environments like this, it feels like WoW is making a little bit of an ascent in the esports scene. It seems like there's an investment going on here.
Oh, certainly. We have always viewed esports as a thing for our players to all come together and kind of share their love of the game, share the experience with each other, the community to come together, all out there on Twitch chat just saying how happy they are all the time. We love, having this type of situation on a weekend, and you kind of feel that hype building up as we get closer and closer to BlizzCon. And the things we did, we did some small things this year. We just created, we added the Spectate match, which enabled people like David Hollings and Hannah to go out there and start GCD TV. And they put on 20 arena tournaments this year, 20 weekly tournaments. And I think what you saw was a lot of these players, a lot of these guys in the back room, they were playing. They were playing every single week. They were getting that tournament experience that proved really valuable when the online cups came. So all these guys who had been playing 20 weeks, they were kind of getting to their peak performance, and there was a lot of guys who weren't playing in those tournaments and thought, we'll just show up, for these online cups. We're the best. I haven't played the game in 6 months, but whatever. And they got stomped, right, by these guys who've just been playing the game, the new blood. So I think that's really great for the scene. It's really great that people like GCD TV were so excited and invested in the game that they felt like it was worthwhile for them to spend that time running those tournaments. I think it's really helped our community grow. I think it's really helped this esports scene grow. And I'm really excited for what it means in the future.
Yeah, so definitely big shout outs to GCD TV for all their hard work, establishing esports presence, help foster that through the community. Also, absolutely shout outs to the WoW community. Thanks for helping this kind of stuff happen. And of course, thanks to Blizzard for the support as well. It does seem like we're just about ready to get these games going again. Thank you once again for joining us, Brian Hinka, and we'll see you guys very soon for more arena matches. Back to the casters.
All right, thanks to Brian Hinka for that insight, and I can echo his sentiment of exactly these teams that played online during all the online qualifier cups. It was great to see, even though we say that they're new blood in terms of the LAN scene, you know, because they haven't been to a physical event yet. They were there every week for GCD TV doing all those. And again, we apologize for the short delay on the match, but the players are getting back into the map. We're just going to replay it from Dalaran Sewers, and we'll be getting into that match right now. The players are ready. We're not going to let them make any changes, you know, because they can do some different opener changes maybe, but I hope FollowESports is going to be able to replicate what they did last time. Like we were saying before, Walter Bear coming out of the gate and just using that Cyclone from stealth was really important.
Yeah, he really needs to look to shut down Peekaboo. He's going to be the one leading his team with those stun locks, with cheap shots and kidney shots. After that, Jamilian Starship looked to follow it up with polymorphs or cyclones. So shutting down Peekaboo just stops the chain right away, and it delays them a little bit longer. Credit to Vossel being a new player on the scene. I think he's doing great on the Warlock. This matchup being very challenging for them. Walter Bear with those preemptive survival instincts as well to keep himself alive as long as possible. Abster saving that Trinket Link as long as he possibly needed to. So a little bit more polish on the offense. I think that they might be able to take Tempo Storm down.
Yeah, and let's see if they can do it. Of course, it is going to be Tempo Storm on your left, FollowESports on your right, and of course, it is going to be 3v3. I'm missing the uniframe for the Feral, but we'll continue into this match. Now we see Starship is going to be hiding right from the start. Looks like we are going to wait again just a minute, possibly, unless this is a perfect opener from Tempo Storm. It looks like they are going to wait again. So, you know, going into that match, knowing that, going through your head that this is the exact same replay of the same match before, do you think that there was going to be like any strat changes, or do you think that they were going to stick with what they did?
I think they have to stick to their guns, and I think that they need to find a way to punch through the crowd control and get to Starship. He's really the MVP of his team, getting the offensive Cyclones period in general, shut down the damage, and will interrupt healing coming out from Abster. So they really need to keep pressure on Starship. They need to keep him on his toes if they want to take Tempo Storm down. At the same time, they want to look to punish any over-aggression as well from Jamilian Peekaboo. They can overextend, line of sight behind boxes. It's something that they can look to expose. Unfortunately, due to some problems here, the teams are going to be waiting for each other, but strategically speaking, FollowESports at a bit of a composition disadvantage, need to overcome it with pure skill.
Yeah, do you, like overall RMD versus this FLS? What's the big defining difference between those? Why the RMD is so much better against an FLS?
Yeah, the RMD is all about cross CC, crowd control, and burst. So what Tempo Storm looks to do is every 30 seconds they use the Deep Freeze, they'll use a Bash, a Shadow Dance, or a Vanish to stun lock all three players, then clone them and polymorph them out of that stun lock, crowd controlling effectively 3 players. And what crowd control does is it prevents you from playing. So basically you cannot heal, you cannot deal damage, and you are going to receive a lot because Rogue Mage Druid coordinated burst is the name of the game for them. Whereas FollowESports is a much slower composition. They're looking to rot down their opponents. They're looking to take it into a later game, and to do so they need to rotate defensive cooldowns effectively. They need to take the moments to push in aggressively when they know that the enemy team doesn't have cooldowns. And in a LAN tournament, you don't have add-ons to help you out with that. You've got to keep a timer in your head. Is Deep Freeze up? I don't know, but I need to make a play. Do I risk it and go in? Oh no, Deep Freeze is up, and we end up losing because of that. So it's something you've got to keep going in the back of your head, or you could end up risk losing the series. And
that's something that we haven't touched on yet, but we don't allow these players to use add-ons. You know, we have a list of the allowed scripts that we allow players to, you know, move frames around, or, you know, we give them specific ones like maybe changing the class colors on the unit frame, stuff like that. Things that we don't feel would give them a crazy advantage over the other teams if they didn't have it. And what we did is after we gathered all the scripts, we published them all to every team, and we're like, here's the scripts that you were allowed to use. So that means if you are a team and you didn't do your homework and you didn't look around for those excellent scripts online, these players could show up, and it was almost like a shopping list of the scripts that the teams would need. It's really interesting to see these teams kind of work around not having add-ons. Like we were saying, if you don't know when Deep Freeze is up, you know, as a healer, you really, really have to kind of keep on your toes and kind of keep in the back of your mind, you know, if it's 30 seconds left, you know, and the enemy team seems like they're about to push, do they have that CC ready or not? And so that's a really, really tense moment if you've relied on using add-ons for years and years.
Yeah, if you rely on using specifically Omnibar for a lot of these players, you can't take advantage of that. You can't just look down at the bottom and say, oh, Deep Freeze is up in 15 seconds. Let's go, guys. You got 15 seconds to get something done. You kind of just go in the back of your head, 20 seconds, 25, 24, 9, 1, 5. How many seconds is left until defreeze is up? I don't know. I don't think we can go. And then you lose an opportunity. And with every opportunity lost, the other team is going to take advantage.
Especially with a team like FLS that you were saying that they need to just keep the momentum going in their favor. If they go for an offensive push and there was that cross crowd control available, like all 3 members CC'd, which is how we watched FollowESports lose towards the end of there. One of the things that I never really thought about that I was listening to Sidu talk about, I believe it was on his stream when he was talking about it, that what he'll do is everyone uses the stopwatch, the in-game stopwatch that you would never ever use for anything, right? I mean I can't remember how many times I like pulled it up ever outside of seeing it in a tournament setting. But they make these macros where when they see the enemy mage use counterspell, they hit a button, it shouts into their team's chat saying counterspell used, and then it starts that stopwatch down. But this is all a manual thing. This isn't an add-on that's doing it for themselves. But what Sidu was saying, above and beyond that, he would use his cooldowns to track the enemy cooldowns. So if Incarnation was used and then he used an ability that matches about the same cooldown, he's got it in his mind, okay, when my ability is about to come off cooldown, Incarnation is going to come off cooldown. And so he can kind of manage those extra cooldown tracking even without having add-ons. And I thought that was incredibly smart. I didn't even think about it until he said that. And so these players have been doing that kind of thing at all these tournaments, and that's really what sets people apart.
Yeah, the other thing that you don't have without add-ons are diminishing return trackers, and what that means is that when a mage casts polymorph, that's going to put you on a DR, which means the next polymorph is only half duration. The third polymorph is only a third duration. Now, after 18 seconds, that resets, you can get another full sheep. If you're not keeping track of that DR, you go a little bit too soon, your polymorph is half duration, your CC chain is going to be a lot shorter, and the other team can take advantage of that. So both teams at a disadvantage without add-ons. Diminishing returns, very important for Tempo Storm. Cooldown tracking, very important for FollowESports. And we're going to have to see if they can punch through that crowd control and see if they can catch any of the mistakes from Tempo Storm. I saw last game Starship kind of more liberally bark-skinned early on. I think he was afraid of the Incarnation damage, but once again, there wasn't any Dark Soul, so Starship playing very safely, but at the same time, Vossel was very patient, just wasn't able to capitalize on punishing that overuse of cooldowns.
All right, and we are going to be talking with Bajira and Venruki just for a moment while these teams get prepared for their match on Dalaran Sewers again.
All right, guys, back at the analyst station, joined by Venruki once again. So in this tournament, we are seeing some absolutely top-level RMD gameplay, and we've been talking about it a lot. Now, you have quite the experience playing a Frost Mage, so you might know a thing or two about how RMD sets up their CC chain. We've heard, it's a deep freeze into a polymorph, but what else is going on? What are you communicating with your team when you guys are using that devastating CC combo?
A lot of the times people think it's the mage that sets up the CC, but in reality, the mage depends on his team to really get the cross CC on the other teammates. So in a matchup like this, it's going to be up to Peekaboo to make sure he's putting cheap shots and garrotes on the off target so Jamili can push in and get those deep sheeps on the healer. Starship can follow up with a Cyclone on the DPS, and really it just becomes really smooth if all 3 teammates are doing the same thing.
And we just saw a tweet, someone who is especially impressed with Peekaboo, and you are not the only one. Peekaboo is considered, no offense to the other amazing players here, to be the top rogue in North America. And we are seeing him once again on a tournament stage, absolutely tearing it up. Now, we have only been able to see one game from them so far, but that was a definitely very convincing win, and you can see them cycling through that crowd control once again. Peekaboo making insanely quick decisions. So when you're communicating with the rogue on your team, what weaknesses, perhaps, in an FLS, I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but in an FLS, what weaknesses or what situations would you want to go offensive and set up that crowd control with your rogue to do an offensive push?
Basically, anytime you can. If you have deep freeze up as the mage, you're going to be communicating with your team, letting them know that you're ready to go. You can push in for that deep freeze sheep. And if the rogue is ready to go with the cross CC, the off cheap shot, the off kidney, and your druid can push in for a position to Cyclone, then every 30 seconds you're looking to go and make a move and get the other team scared.
So your offensive pressure is up nearly every 30 seconds, and you want to go with that as often as possible. Against an FLS, there are situations, and we even saw that in the last game when Jamili actually had to retreat pretty far across the map behind the pillar, saved his ice block, though. You got to make sure you can block CC, so you don't want to ice block if you're going to about to die. So you have that option of playing a little bit more defensively. Once again, you're going to rely on your rogue to play a little bit defensively. Obviously, a low health situation is going to lead to playing a little bit defensive, but against an FLS in particular, breaking it down for this match that we're going to see soon is what situation would you want to start using your setup to peel? Because obviously, if you're using a deep freeze, not as an offensive ability, but as a defensive ability, it's going to make you wait a few seconds before you can attack once again. So what are the situations where you'd be using your abilities, your CC as an RMD to play defensively rather than offensively?
Well, the FLS, anytime they rotate their trinket to shut down your deep sheep or get out of your crowd control, you can just pull away. You look to throw out those decurses as a mage. Mage, rogue, and druid, all very, very mobile classes, so they can pull back behind the pillar. Jamili will be building up those icicles, and then anytime they overextend or push in or they're ready to go, they can just go in, and that's what makes RMD so strong. The game is dictated by them.
So initially, in the beginning of the last match, we actually saw them open on Absturge briefly, swapping it over to Vassal, but then they really decided on their target, Wallabear the Feral Druid. It seems to me that the reason why they're hitting Wallabear is, one, because he doesn't have as many defensive cooldowns at his disposal. His defensive cooldowns are unusable while stunned, and he's also the one who has to overextend the most in order to get damage out. Do you think that's the primary target for an RMD, in your opinion?
Yeah, he just has the least amount of breaks. So once his trinket's up and he's used his 2 survival instincts, his big wall that makes him take way less damage, it's pretty easy to kill him. Feral Druids are one of the easiest targets to kill when they don't have their trinket available. So they can capitalize on that anytime the healer doesn't have his trinket, Absturge, as well as Walter Bear playing that Feral Druid. It's going to be really scary for them, and they're going to have to play defensive.
So admittedly, we're talking up RMD a lot. We're making these guys sound like unstoppable juggernauts. And to be honest, RMD is a composition that has a lot of defensive utility, offensive utility, a lot of that coming from crowd control, but also burst damage. But they are not absolutely invincible. What are teams going to have to do in order to either shut down the RMD's CC chains or in order to put them on their back foot? What are these teams going to have to do to disrupt this tournament-level RMD?
They're going to be looking to capitalize any mistakes that this RMD uses. So if Peekaboo ends up trinketing a little bit offensively, they can capitalize on that with like Incarnation. And basically what this team's going to be doing is looking for any mistakes that the RMD makes and trying to capitalize on that. The ball really is in the RMD's court, but if the game goes on and they can delay it long enough, Starship can run out of mana and they can get off a win like that.
Yeah, that's what we saw in the Qualifier Cup number 3 when the RMD did end up losing. It was against LSD3, and the LSD3 played really defensively, dampened the game out. They weathered the storm of the offense and then pushed it back. It seems like that may be something that the FLS is going to have to do, but one of the things we also can do is take a look at the end of the last match and maybe break that down a little bit. Once again, just basking in the nearly unstoppable force that is RMD that we're seeing today. So we're seeing Jamili at about half health here with the Iron Bark, so that may give him the confidence to continue to play aggressively. Peekaboo is just now getting out of a Shadow Fury, and this is right about when the CC is really about to get out of hand for the FLS team.
Yeah, the offensive clone comes in from Starship onto Walter Bear, denying any of those incoming heals, and really we're going to be looking for the off CC, like we said. Kidney shot onto Vassal, he's not going to be able to do anything. Absurge caught into the full polymorph, and now out of this, Walter Bear is most likely going to get stunned and take a lot of damage. As you can see, Absurge is still crowd controlled, so the amazing crowd control of this RMD, they're not under any pressure, and that's one of the things is when they go offensive, they're also being very defensive, shutting down the enemy team. They're not taking any damage at all.
That's one of the very impressive things about this RMD is that even though they are playing offensively, we're seeing the FLS use offensive cooldowns. The Dark Soul was used, and Vassal was cloned on that. He's been stunned, and at this point, we're talking about Wallabear having to flee for his life. He was in bear form earlier, swapped back into bear form just now, but unfortunately, he is completely on his own in a cheap shot, whereas Vassal is in the half poly, and Absurge is finishing up that full blind. So as the RMD's CC chain rolls around more and more, things get really, really rough for the enemy team. So the FLS does have a chance at it. They have to definitely maybe play for the long game, play a little bit more defensively, allow the RMD to really use all their offensive pressure. However, they have to find some way to weather the storm because they know every 30 seconds that setup's coming.
Yeah, the most important thing really is just that they're not overlapping their cooldowns. They want to make sure they're never stacking their trinkets because that's going to put them in a spot where they're very, very vulnerable. So the key to really beating RMD is making sure you're on point with your defensive cooldowns and you capitalize offensively after they end up using their deep freeze and their sheep. And if you can shut it down, you can turn around the game.
All right, so thank you very much, Venruki, for the insight. Tournament quality made yourself. Obviously, we do have a little bit of issues, but we're working on that. And what we're going to do now is throw it to a quick commercial break, and we'll be back with more arena matches as soon as we can. Stay tuned, guys. We're just getting started.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Seems like we have our player issues sorted out. We got those computers back up and running for them, so we are going to be getting right back into the game. Of course, the series right now is Tempo Storm is up 1 game over FollowESports, so we're going to replay that map on Dalaran Sewers. We're not going to let the players change anything. We're just going to get them right back into the game.
Yep, the players and teams are stuck with their composition. So Feral Lock Shaman for FollowESports.com, and we've got the Rogue Mage Restoration Druid for Team Tempo Storm, and Tempo Storm took a commanding lead in game number 1. Their defense, their offense, everything was together like glue, whereas Tempo Storm, they had a pretty good defense for the early game, unfortunately couldn't carry it into the late game successfully. They're going to look to do so here on Dalaran Sewers.
Yeah, and this will be a defining map for FollowESports, of course. They're down 1-0, and we are playing best of 3 in best of 3 in the series, in the group stage. So, being down 1-0, this is their map pick. They chose to stick with the FLS. I think they just really need to just go a little bit stronger in the opener, and maybe they can make something happen.
Yeah, definitely. The Incarnation and Dark Soul are what you're looking for out from Walter Bear and Vassal. Those are their big damage increasing cooldowns, whereas Absurge is going to be looking to back them up. I believe actually in that last game, something to note is Absurge was actually polymorphed without the Deep Freeze, so that Deep Freeze became available again, and you saw that chained into a full blind as well. So well played from Jamili to be able to land that polymorph without the normal setup that they would require. But the gates have opened. We can see Tempo Storm leading forward with that Shroud of Concealment. They're going to be wanting to push forward and landing their sap. I'm curious who they're going to go on. Walter Bear had an excellent defensive clone when we saw them play against each other earlier. Let's see if you can get the same.
Yeah, and you can see that Peekaboo is just playing very patiently for it. He lands a sap onto Absturge, and they're going to go immediately onto Vassals right now, and that is what they need to do to start it open. And even look at Starship trying, wow, and Starship actually gets interrupted on that. Oh no, he did land that Clone, as the Shadow Dance is going to fade right there. Look at the damage onto Vassals already. Huge heal coming out because of that Spirit Link, getting the health of Vassals back up to full, but they're going to turn it immediately around onto Walter Bear.
Yeah, he's caught in that kidney shot. Absturge trading effectively with that one Spirit Link, now trading even more efficiently with that Ascendance and his Aura Mastery healing. Saving that Trinket Link, like I said previously, is his biggest last line of defense and doing a great job to survive through that. A bit of a close call for Vassal, but they're going to look to rotate the pressure around as the Incarnation comes out from Walter. Good reaction from Starship. Bark skinning immediately. Unfortunately, Vassal just didn't have dots up. Peekaboo doing a good job to lock Vassal down and not allow him to keep that throughput going. One more Dark Soul is available. Vassal trying to load up as many dots as he can. Now an Incarnation stun onto Peekaboo. He has no Trinket, but he did pre-feint the stun, which reduces all of that damage coming in. now we see the pressure forced to be swapped over onto Jamili as a haunt connects onto him. Starship doing a great job in the backline, dispelling the dots whenever possible. But here comes that setup. Peekaboo, flashy play, death from above onto Walter Bear. He's going to use that survival instincts, but he had to use his trinket to access it, which means on the next setup, Absurge needs to use that trinket link.
Yeah, and that is an important trinket right there because his incarnation is down right now as that second Dark Soul fades, able to get 2 lines of dots out onto the enemy team, so that's pretty good. Jamili needs to keep on top of those Curse of Agonies, though. A 10 stack all over the enemy team.
Yeah, definitely. See this smoke bomb being dropped defensively from Peekaboo. Not going to be using that for aggression. He needs to take advantage of the damage reduction because FollowESports are doing excellently right now. Starship has to trinket out of that clone. Uses the Iron Bark evasion forced out from Peekaboo. FollowESports looks like a completely different team. They need to survive this setup, but I believe Absurge got locked on that Hex. He's trying to keep his team alive right now. Walter is down to half with nothing left himself. He's going to rely on Absurge to keep him alive. Now his Nature's Vigil coming up, retreating back, hitting Jamili a little bit, trying to interrupt this incoming CC as that Deep Freeze was landed. He does get locked on the poly. Well played from Vossel to interrupt that incoming CC. Jamili pushing in here. He wants to get on top of Absurge. They want to get that CC rolling, but I wonder if FollowESports are going to be able to punish it. Now we see Jamili retreating. He's not going to go and push in there too aggressively. Starship needs to get some mana, and so he will.
Yeah, and I will say the Cyclone from Walter Bear landed. Oh, look at Peekaboo taking a ton of damage, having to cloak because he was stuck in that bash also, and Starship was going for the drink. So I think it was a good trade right there. Having to immediately turns it around with the Shadow Dance. They're going to put it right back on. Look at the cross CC that we talked about before the match. Everything is coming out. We see the polys, the bashes, everything.
Yeah, Absurge did a great play there, pre-linking the incoming polymorph, realizing that there was no way to stop it. Pre-linked it, keeps his team very stable right now and very healthy as Walter pushes down onto Peekaboo. Lava Burst flying in from Absurge as well. The Iron Bark out from Starship. Immaculate play to keep those defensive cooldowns rotating over and over to keep his team stable, but his mana's starting to hurt. We're not even into dampening. Jamili's on Hypothermia. His block not available for 3 more seconds, down at 45%, but he lands the poly. Actually uses the Deep Freeze onto Walter. Peekaboo not able to connect. He's going to use the Vanish Cheap Shot. Good coordination out from Peekaboo and Jamili right now. A lot of pressure onto Walter. He trinkets. He uses the shield wall. Death from above comes smoking in, down to 24% HP. Absurge pops the Aura Mastery, tosses him off with a sick healing surge, and stabilizes. Now they need to keep the aggression rolling.
Wow, that was a great push right there from Tempo Storm, and it's amazing that Walter Bear was able to live through that, but that was an important moment in this match because that offensive onslaught shut down from Tempo Storm means they're going to have a little while before they can do it again, although Peekaboo's Shadow Dance is up as we see the second incarnation coming out from Walter Bear. It looks like they want to try to go into Starship at this point.
Yeah, they catch a full poly onto Absurge without the Deep Freeze, and that's how they lost game number 1, and I think that's how they're going to lose game number 2. Walter Bear desperately trying to stay alive. Vossel outputting as much counter pressure as possible, but he does get locked out. Peekaboo landing a kick, mitigating all that incoming damage. Starship needs to get in here, start playing offensively. He's trying to recover, it would appear, trying to retreat from on top here. Jamili now blazing, speeding away. That Iron Bark is going to be traded out. We're 30 seconds away from dampening. FollowESports, regardless of that lack of LAN tournament experience, are doing great. Jamili dipping low. NS forced out from Starship as well as the Nature's Vigil, and that is prior to the Dark Soul. If Vossel is patient here, he could get a lot of rot pressure out.
Yeah, and look at him push forward, really trying to get the dots out on the Starship too. There we go. Now he's going to have dots on the entire enemy team at this point. Peekaboo taking a bunch of damage, playing very offensive. As you see, the death from above, they're going to land it on Walter Bear. That wasn't that big of a damage, but the cross CC was out there, which is why Walter Bear is going to start rotting down to all this damage from Tempo Storm as the link comes out yet again as Walter Bear seems to be okay during this onslaught, but Peekaboo still has his Shadow Dance ready.
Yeah, Absurge has been doing a great job with those Spirit Links, trying to get them preemptively on CC, but now we're at a moment where Frozen Orb, Shadow Dance is available, and that's the double cooldown combo from Peekaboo and Jamili, and I think they're going to go for it. They drop the Smoke Bomb, Shadow Dance comes out. I think this is going to be it for Walter. He's down to 20%. Absurge into the cheap shot. Survival Instincts barely coming up in time. The healing stream preemptively down from Absurge. Well played once again, preemptively dealing with that burst because that could have been the end for Walter. Absurge again trinketing out of that blind. They've got a lot of pressure rolling. Can they turn it around? Only one more block remaining for Jamili. They force the Barkskin out from Starship. Walter landing a clone onto Peekaboo. He's not going to be able to peel for his team. Jamili and Starship have to deal with the pressure right now. Doing a great job so far, but for how much longer? Dampening now kicking in at 6%. This is another attack onto Walter Bear. Death from above comes crashing in. He's going to trade his trinket. Aura Mastery out from Absurge, rotating his cooldowns very well throughout this game to stay alive this long against such a Titaness team.
Yeah, Absurge just doing an incredible job keeping his team alive on this match, even though it's such close quarters. Peekaboo at any moment can just toss out some CC on him. Vassal's doing a great job of keeping the enemy team dotted up. Just lots of damage coming out. But the big play right now is Starship is sitting down and drinking up to 76% mana. Jamili right there has to toss the Frostra out, even onto Vassals, as Jamili, wow, immediately is going to start dealing that damage. As you see, his Icy Veins is up. He's really trying to get those fast polymorphs out onto Vassals. So that was a great job right there from Jamili.
Great fear out from Vassal, realizing the dots had fallen off from Starship, and they're going to swap to him out of that fear. But Peekaboo trying to rotate the pressure, pops that Shadow Dance. Dark Soul out from Vassal. Both teams going toe for toe. Full half stab onto Absurge. Walter not taking any damage. He's able to push in aggressively despite Peekaboo's Shadow Dance. They've got a 1 minute opening where they can go, and they're going to do it. Incarnation gets popped. Starship trinkets desperately here. Uses that Iron Bark Stampeding Roar, trying to kite away, but they're rotating the pressure onto Jamili as well. They both need to retreat back to the boxes, but Incarnation is still up for 20 more seconds. Vassal desperately needs to get some pressure. He's got full dots on Jamili, full dots on Starship, now soon full dots on Peekaboo as they rotate over to him with no trinket. He Cloak of Shadows, immediately realizing how dire the situation is. Lava Burst following in. FollowESports, I think they found their thunder. They forced the second Ice Block out from Jamili. Fortunately, Cold Snap coming off cooldown, so he will have access to another. They need to find a way to turn this pressure around. Tempo Storm are not looking good in this position.
They're not. However, Starship seems to be maintaining that. There goes a fear right there, which does break to dot damage. That was extremely lucky at that point. We see a poly come out, full poly onto Vassals right there, which is going to break also, as Absurge is going to be caught in that root right now. He's actually a little bit away from his team, having to use that Windwalk Totem to free himself, as Starship, again, look at him turn into bear form over and over and over, but the damage coming out on to Jamili also, who luckily has that remaining block available, but it seems like Walter Bear is just taking a ton of damage from Peekaboo with that Shadow Dance up.
Good reaction from Walter, trinketing immediately on that Shadow Dance. Pressure onto Jamili. He's got one block available. He's trying to hold on to it as long as possible because Walter is not connecting. He's trying to output pressure onto Peekaboo, but Walter is down to 23%. Absurge drops the link, and once again, preemptively predicting the damage, keeping his team alive, keeping the aggression rolling. We see Walter pushing in, landing that full maim, using those instant cast entangling roots onto Peekaboo. He's now sat 2 full roots. Walter Bear doing great with his procs there to root up Peekaboo constantly. Iron Bark now forced out from Starship onto Peekaboo, which now means it won't be available for himself or Jamili if they decide to go on those targets. Absurge is now running low on mana. He's actually below, and they're actually making a swap over to Absurge. He trinkets immediately. He's not going to lose this game for his team. He needs to keep the momentum swinging right now because Dampening is stacking ever so ominously.
It is, but look at Jamili's health. It hasn't been up to full in a very long time. We see him tossing out those remove curses also, which is very important in this matchup, as Jamili needs to keep his team healthy and help Starship out, as Starship was going for a Cyclone, which does get kicked, as the Shadow Dance comes out from Peekaboo. Walter Bear caught in that stun. Look at the cross CC yet again, setting up on Walter Bear.
Yeah, he's barely staying alive, clinging onto life at 40%. Vassal pops the Dark Soul, lands a full fear. Can they turn the pressure around? Starship being very greedy, sitting through this full fear. He wants to save the trinket for the Incarnation, but that means they have to trade the Ice Block, and now Jamili is out of Ice Blocks. They land a full Hex. Jamili decurses that right away, playing excellently to remove that instantly. Now let's see what they can do. Shadow Dance is coming up in 30. Frozen Orb is coming up in 10, but Jamili is under fire. Vassal landing all of these fears are why they're able to force so many cooldowns, but a full poly has been landed onto Absurge. Starship is going to push up, goes for the clone onto Vassal. There's a 3v1 situation onto Walter. How is he going to make it out of this alive? He's got nothing left personally. Absurge needs to get the link, but he's still crowd controlled. Down at 6%, he gets the link.
Wow.
The miracle link of the game to keep his team in this. Dampening now at 30%. They can rotate this pressure around. They've got 28 seconds. They're going to go onto Starship. He's down to 50%. How is he going to do with the dampening? I don't think he's going to be able to. Down at 42%. Now swapping over to Jamili. Walter Bear pops that Incarnation. He needs to get some burst off. He's going to go after Peekaboo. Peekaboo trinkets out of that immediately, trying to kite away with that feint, and FollowESports cannot let up on this aggression. They need to push.
And that's what they're going to do. They're going to go onto Starship with that Incarnation, as it still has a long duration remaining. Look at the health bars of Tempo Storm. This isn't looking good. They can kill anyone at this point. Absurge in that kidney shot. Let's see if Starship can keep them alive. The bark skin fades. Peekaboo is by himself. That block barely comes up. But look, Starship, Pika gets a huge heal from that NS. But Starship is in trouble right now. Jamili had to sit that whole block and didn't get a single heal during it, as Starship is going to toss out some heals. This is looking not good at all.
How is he going to stabilize? I don't think Iron Bark's enough, and Jamili is going to fall. And FollowESports are going to tie this series up 1-1. Despite losing game 1, they played it out patiently. Vassal doing a great job to keep that consistent pressure up. You can see him taking top damage that game, leading commandingly despite being nerfed, still relying on that Affliction pressure to go through game number 2. And we have a series now.
We really do. I tell you what, that Spirit Link was incredible. Let's throw it over to Bajira and see what he saw.
Are you kidding me? We're still in the first round and we're having games like that. That was epic. So we talked a lot about what a team is going to have to do to overcome an RMD playing as sharp as Tempo Storm are. And I think we just saw that FollowESports has what it takes. They took them into the late game. They survived everything that Tempo Storm can throw at them, and they finally got it to the position where they were exactly where they needed to be to finally finish that game out in their favor. That was incredible. Now look at Wallabear. He's got his incarnation popped. He sees 2 low health targets. He's going in. He can taste the victory, and he wants it desperately. And luckily for FollowESports, they actually are able to finally secure that. Now look at MVP Absturge landing this lava burst killing blow from across the map. Absturge absolutely did an amazing job healing his team throughout all that pressure. You know he knows how to play against RMD. The question is, can they repeat that stellar performance and move on in the tournament against Tempo Storm? I guess we should find out by throwing it back to the casters.
All right, thank you, Bajir, again for that insight, and what an incredible match that was. It is now tied 1-1 between Tempo Storm and FollowESports. A great map pick on to Dalaran Sewers that it really played in their favor. You know, we saw Vossel constantly being able to put pressure onto Starship when he needed to, get those dots out, get those rolling, land those spheres if needed. But of course, that means every time that the Incarnation up, they were on top of the team, both of them.
Yeah, definitely. Walter and Absturge were the MVPs, preemptively predicting the cooldowns coming out and the situations, because their classes cannot use their cooldowns during crowd control. They have to predict it and be ahead of Tempo Storm, which is a surprising turn of events here. We thought that Tempo Storm would be able to take this series wholeheartedly, but they are now tied 1-1. It's going to be a battle of the best here in this best of 3, and we've got the map selection, we've got the comp selections, no change-ups. However, we are going to be leading into Tolvaron Arena, definitely an advantageous map for Tempo Storm.
Yeah, do you think the size of the map and the size of the pillars are going to play to their advantage, or what's the big reason why an RMD would pick this map?
It's to drag your opponents. When you want to reset, you need a lot of distance. It's going to allow for some easy drinks, but Starship was even so skilled finding drinks even on Dalaran Sewers, so definitely didn't even need the map advantage for that, but they're looking to overextend Walter. I feel like Tempo Storm just spent too much time on him. Maybe take advantage of the fact that Absturge is trading those cooldowns preemptively, go after him a little bit, just mix it up, because I feel like Walter got comfortable getting trained like that, and they adapted, and they were able to take game number 2.
Yeah, and a great job by Walter. What the thing about Death from Above, it's a little bit delayed damage, so he knows if he's not crowd controlled, every single time he can watch the rogue just leap up in the air and just survival instincts every single one. And that's what he was doing. So that shut down a lot of pressure, because we saw it in the scoreboard at the end, there was 113k eviscerate in there. So stopping any amount of damage from that is very, very important. All right, so it looks like they're going to go offensive right from the start. We see a sap onto Absturge. Peekaboo is going to open onto Absturge. This is different. They're going to immediately use Death from Above. They're just going to train Absturge into the ground.
Yeah, he's using that Battlemaster Hellstone to deal with that silence. He's trying to cut away. Jamili popping that Icy Veins, they're rotating the pressure now onto Walter Bear. Caught into a stun lock rotation, down to 20%. Trinkets out of that immediately to activate the survival instincts, but well-timed clone out from Starship is going to negate any incoming healing from Absturge. I wonder if they're going to be able to rotate the CC over. We see Jamili trying to get a Sheep, trying to get a Frost Shot, not able to do it. They're going to follow it up with the Blind. Well-timed Blind out from Peekaboo, going for some early damage onto Walter, using that Vanish very early, trying to connect now down to 50%. Jamili getting Shadow Furied on that Deep Freeze. Nice shutdown from Vossel, but he's going to get it regardless. They need to connect onto Walter, and Walter's doing an amazing job kiting around this pillar and avoiding, but finally Peekaboo's found his target. That Smoke Bomb is down. Absturge trinkets out. He's trying to reconnect. He drops the Link, stabilizing his team. Now they need to look to rotate the pressure and aggression around. Peekaboo realizing that, preemptively evasioning.
Yeah, we see the Berserk and the Incarnation and the Tiger's Fury coming out from Walter Bear. Lots of cooldowns used. They really want to put it to Jamili right now, who is gonna block. That block was great because it's going to stop those important cooldowns from working. But we do see Vossel has the Dark Soul, and that is what we were talking about, the important cooldown usage from FollowESports. So they just need to keep capitalizing on that.
Yep, Shadow Dance set up out from Peekaboo. Nice Shadow Fury shutdown. Vossel once again landing a full fear on Starship, and those fears are how they got pressure last time. I wonder if they're going to go for that, a bit more of a CC strat onto Starship and focus Jamili and Peekaboo down. We saw Peekaboo use an evasion very early on. Jamili having to block as well. We see a full clone landed onto Absturge, but they're not able to capitalize. Walter playing excellently on defense, already out of range of Peekaboo and out of touch. Tempo Storm need to find a new target or a new way to deal with this situation.
Yeah, I liked that they were leaving Absturge crowd controlled, and immediately Walter Bear knew that I'm just going to sit behind the pillars so we don't force anything, force any cooldown usage. We see some clones coming out. Walter Bear is going to eat one right there as Absturge is sitting really far back, but look at Peekaboo trying to threaten Absturge just by walking towards him. And of course, we are going to see the crowd control all over the team of FollowESports, and this is what led to their demise during the DeGrande game, but it seems like they're going to be able to stabilize and live through this.
Yeah, Jamili's just never able to connect the dots. Vossel and Walter are always there to shut it down. Now with Shadow Fury, Absturge going for some Lava Burst. Nice capacitor totem onto Peekaboo. He's not going to be able to crowd control his opponents right now. Vossel going for a haunt, realizing it. Nice clone as well from Walter out of that capstone. Good coordination from Walter and Absturge have been carrying them through these games. Unfortunately, Absturge getting polyed without that deep freeze. This is going to be an incredibly long CC chain with no way out. Walter trinkets, he pops the survival instincts. Will it be enough? This crowd control chain is huge on Absturge. Walter needs to run. He's in full retreat. Peekaboo reconnects with that Shadow Dance. Death from above comes crashing in. He pre-bear forms it, doing everything he can to reduce this incoming damage. And Jamili is just not there for the follow-up damage. Walter will be able to survive this crowd control chain onto Absturge and continue fighting here shortly. But Starship, once again, with those MVP clones, cloning out Walter down at 50%, denying Absturge's Aura Mastery. But he connected the heal right at the end of the clone. Really well played from Absturge.
That really was. I like that Absturge really held on to everything he could cooldown-wise, because we did see his Ascendance used really early in that match, which was denied by those clones that you were talking about. So he still has a little while. There we go. Ascendance is going to be back up for the next onslaught. You know, he does have one link available right now. As you can see, it is about 30 seconds away from both Berserk and Incarnation, which is when FollowESports really needs to push. But it was incredible that Walter Bear was able to live through that extremely long CC chain onto Absturge.
Yeah, he's been doing a great job to kite, and I like that they're playing patiently, realizing Walter doesn't have a trinket. Incarn's up in 13 seconds. We don't want to overextend, and that's why Tempo Storm picked Tolvaron Arena. They're trying to drag Walter into the open and expose him, because we can see when Walter's at the pillar, he's doing great. We see them actually going after the Warlock pet as Vossel is crowd controlled. I wonder if they're going to make a Warlock swap here, just not able to kill the pet off. We see Peekaboo going for a complete reset. Starship as well, going for a drink, and it doesn't look like they're going to be able to stop it anytime soon. Starship at 100% mana, moving into dampening and looking good as Peekaboo moves forward. Cheap shots on everyone. Swap over onto Absturge. He's got Trinket available. He needs to react to the situation now. Drops the Windwalk Totem, switches the Earth Shield. Now there's pressure onto Peekaboo with this over-aggressive play, but Starship is there to deny any damage out from Walter. Absturge is going to recover without trading any cooldowns.
And that was a great fear by Vossels onto Jamili, who tried to blink in to toss some more crowd control onto Absturge. As Absturge is living, but Walter Bear is in trouble as we see him run in to the smoke bomb to heal. Didn't have to link there, which is a great holding on. Now he has both of his links available, as Jamili is going to land a poly onto Absturge, and it seems like they're about to go offensive. Here we go. Here comes the Incarnation and the Berserk. On to Peekaboo is the target of choice at this point. Shadow Fury onto Starship. Anything following up? There we go. 5-second fear onto Starship. Peekaboo, as that one split second, he was able to toss up the Iron Bark onto Peekaboo, which is huge.
Yeah, whenever Vossel gets these fears, they swap to him out of it. So well played from Vossel and Walter to coordinate these fear swaps. We can see Tempo Storm all down to half, and this is it. They're against the wall. If they lose this game, they're going to have to fight it out in the loser side of this group. Now Vossel popping that Dark Soul, trying to end this game. Starship has no Barkskins. Jamili has 2 blocks, but if they switch targets, it might not matter. Peekaboo going on the offense. Absturge caught into a deep freeze, caught into a full sheep. He's going to Trinket and Spirit Link instantly because they want to rotate the pressure with this Dark Soul onto Jamili. They need to start forcing ice blocks here in dampening. Lava Burst flying forward. Peekaboo down to 38%, trying to swap over. Starship caught into a bash. Drain Soul is up, trying to force whatever healing they can out from Starship here. Jamili down to half, Peekaboo down to 30%, but with no Dark Soul, no Incarnation, I think they're going to be able to recover, but for how much longer? We saw how this long game played out for FollowESports earlier.
Yeah, the second that Starship had both Pika and Jamili low last game, that's when FollowESports was able to capitalize on it. Let's see if they can do that again. Starship again trying to toss some CC out from himself right there, but wasn't able to land anything. That cap stun totem goes down. They were trying to catch Peekaboo at that point, but it looks like Peekaboo is just going to play a little bit more defensively as he's choosing to go on the offense, though this time Walter Bear, as it looks like the mindset of FollowESports might be to play defensively until those moments of burst, but that might not pay off. Great stampeding roar right there, as it looks like Walter Bear, they are going to try to kill him again, but Absturge is going to be standing there and waiting. Looks like the teams might be having a little problem right there. But what an amazing match up until that point. We really saw that it's just so back and forth. I liked the Incarnation and Berserk stacking. You know, they really went for it. There was one point when both Jamili and Peekaboo could have been opportune targets. as Starship, of course, just doing an amazing job, really, really standing so far away that Fossil almost landed no fears on him that game.
Yeah, Starship knows that he's the target that FollowESports are going to go after, whether it be with CC or for a kill. So he's positioned very far back and in a defensive posture, looking to set things up after Jamili and Peekaboo have laid them out for him, not taking any risks and playing his Druid role basically perfectly here throughout the game. Now, that's such a long game to have a problem at just towards the end. Both teams are playing so intensely, and you can't help but feel sorry for them because it's so tense.
Yeah, it was on both sides. The thing is, though, like both teams, I didn't see a huge advantage going into that moment for either team. Of course, Tempo Storm did survive through the last incarnation, which would be coming up right about now if the game was still going on. But Jamili had both of his blocks available. You know, there was a lot of ways for his team to survive at that point. We did have a small power flicker is what happened right there. So as you saw, all three members of FollowESports weren't able to continue playing right there. But what we can do now is let's, since that was such an amazing match, even though it didn't end with a winner, let's talk to Bajira and see what he saw during those matches.
All right, so once again, this FollowESports versus Tempo Storm matchup is proving to be something that you'd expect to see in the later stages of the tournament, maybe the finals even. These matches are insane, but we're just in the group stages. So this definitely is a testament to how powerful and how skilled these teams are in this tournament today. In that last match, one of the things that we saw was Tempo Storm making great use of their map choice. And the bigger map, it gave them a chance to reset when they wanted to. It gave Starship a chance to get some drinks when they wanted to. And once again, we're going to look at the opener of last match, I believe, here. But I'm just going to keep providing analysis because it's really interesting to see these teams duke it out. And one of the things I wanted to touch on about the last match that I didn't really get to mention was seeing the FollowESports.com team using their CC a little bit more, rather than just trying to spread as much lock damage as possible, spread around those Feral Druid bleeds. They're actually landing critical fears, both on the healer of Tempo Storm, Starship, and on the mage Jamili. Whenever they were looking to go offensive, Tempo Storm that is, you can see Vossel landing some extremely nice fears on Jamili, disrupting that setup that we were talking about so much earlier. And then whenever they wanted to build some pressure, they were landing that Shadow Fury Fear on Starship. And I think that it was a huge contributing factor to their victory, using their CC that they have available to them to elongate the game, to prolong things, but also allow their AoE pressure to stick. Because you can deal tons of AoE pressure, and that's fine, but a healer like Starship isn't really afraid of that. He's a ladder experienced player. He's shown that he's got what it takes to play in a tournament stage. And I think that what needs to happen here for FollowESports.com is for them to continually learn how to step it up in a tournament setting. I mean, this is a lot different than playing at home at your computer. You are at the WoW America's Regionals tournament. You got to learn on the fly. You got to show that you're able to step it up as a player and as a team to really do what it takes to get the victories on the big stage. But we're going to go ahead and throw it back to the casters and see if we can't get these games rolling for you guys once again.
Thanks again, Bajira. And hey, what a series for this to happen to, though. I mean, this is amazing plays from both teams so far, tied 1-1 going into Tolvaron. A really long, epic match with so much back and forth. And you guys, on that replay, did you see how close that Spirit Link was to not getting Walter Bear right there? He would have been dead if that wouldn't have moved.
Yeah, or forcing the second one, and then at that point, you're probably dead 30 seconds later. The only really unfortunate people of this debacle is the players themselves, because watching another game like that is something that we live for, right? That's the epic moments where you get to see both teams. How do you deal with this setup? How do you deal with that setup? What cooldowns are you going to trade? Every single situation is the same but different. You have to react appropriately, and Walter Bear and Upsurge have great synergy. Vossel is backing them up excellently with his damage, with his fears on the Druid, and I like that they're looking for those opportunities. Usually as a Warlock, you can kind of get locked into this mode where I'm going to do damage, a lot of damage, and you never focus on landing those fears like that. So it's good to see that there's accessibility to different strategies for Vossel.
Yeah, and he's kind of that, like, the silent rock for his team. You know, like Absturge has to make amazing plays defensively. Walter Bear has to make amazing plays offensively. And just having Vossel, you know, setting up the dots on the enemy team, being able to fear, like you said, you know, but he's the person where he's probably not going to get focused that often against this team. It's probably going to be Absturge or Walter Bear that they're going to kill. So he knows he can play a little bit more in their face. He was the one that was pushing up a little bit during those matches, especially on Dalaran and Tolvaron so far. are. So, he's been doing a great job. We haven't really been calling out his plays as much because it's just very consistent. There wasn't anything flashy happening other than the Dark Souls. He's just doing what he needs to do for his team to win.
Yeah, and you don't need to be flashy all the time. You don't need to be the MVP. You just need to keep it together and keep it solid. And they're doing a great job to stay and stand toe-to-toe against Tempo Storm, which was considered one of the most powerful teams in the tournament, whereas FollowESports, a bit of an underdog, proving themselves time and time again. They doubt themselves. They pretend to have overconfidence, or they have overconfidence. I'm not sure, but after that display, I can't blame them for feeling that they can take the victories here against Tempo Storm. And this is a best of 3. We are currently tied 1-1 between Tempo Storm and FollowESports.com. The winner of this next game will move forward in the winner's bracket, whereas the losers will have one more shot to stay in the tournament.
Yeah, and because now it's 1-1 and we saw that amazing comeback by FollowESports, this is going to be a tense moment for the replay on to Tolvaron, because at that point, I think that game could have gone to either team.
Yeah, and you really have to give credit to Walter Bear as well. Knowing when to run is so important. If you're a Feral Druid, you might think, oh, I'm just going to do a ton of damage. That's how my class works. But you also need to know how to play defense. So we can see that the well-rounded teams are the ones that are able to achieve victory. We've seen a lot of teams that are very good at defense, not so good at offense. Some teams are really good at offense, but maybe not so good at defense. But FollowESports.com are a whole package. They have everything available. They just got to keep cool despite these technical issues. Keep it together. They're playing very well, as well as Tempo Storm. They've just got to keep a level head moving forward here as we get the games going.
Yeah, we saw one of the tweets earlier was saying that they were on the edge of their seat, and that's what I was during that match. I was leaning into the screen. I was really excited for the culmination of that match. It was so back and forth throughout the entire thing. So these players are getting the power set back up, getting back into game as soon as possible, because I cannot wait to see which team can take this map. All right, so it is going to be replayed on Tolvaron. We're not going to let the teams change anything up. It's just going to be a straight replay again. Do you think that opener went as well as possible for Tempo Storm? Getting that sap followed by, just trying to train down Avsurge?
It seemed like they had a lot of pressure trying to mix it up rather than kind of being predictable. If you just go after Walter every time, they're ready for it and he can be prepared for it. So you got to throw some curveballs. Rogue Mage Druid have that potential as the melee caster range where they can swap to any target. I'd kind of like to see them exploit Vossel for playing so aggressively. When he's going for those fears, he's way out of position. And because Walter and Avsurge are playing so defensively, it exposes Vossel again. And they're just really not taking advantage of that. I wonder, maybe I don't see this matchup played a lot lately since the previous Warlock nerf, so I haven't had a lot of experience casting it recently, and I feel like Tempo Storm have a strategy that doesn't revolve around going after Vossel because they've basically ignored him the entire game.
Yeah, and I mean, he put numbers up on the scoreboard in both matches. Like, Vossel's damage was just perfect on there. And we saw some decurses coming out of Jamili, not a ton, because he really wanted to stay offensive. He really wanted to use every global to try to punish the enemy team. Lots of CC chains, and there was a couple moments in that match, probably not as much as Tempo Storm needed to, but where the entire team of FollowESports was just crowd controlled. We have the crowd controlled tracker on the actual unit frame, so you guys at home can follow along that. And when you see the 3 crowd controls all over the team, it's not going to be a fun time for Absturge.
Yeah, and you can really see that the teams have to take some sort of risk to win. We see Absturge often going for Lava Burst now. That isn't something you would normally expect for Resto Shaman to say, I'm going to go aggressive, I'm going to participate some damage. But those Lava Bursts crit 30-50k, and that's an unexpected burst that Starship needs to deal with. And we can see Starship playing very well defensively, but he's not doing any of the flashy kind of clones that we have seen previously, and I wonder if he's just afraid of Walter Bear's incarnation.
All right, and we're going to get right back into the game. Really playing defensively during that incarnation is so important in this matchup, and Starship is doing a great job. We haven't seen, like we said, we didn't see any clones on him during that last matchup. He almost was able to use the entire incarnation just to his advantage. So we'll have to see if they can play just as well as they did in the last match. I mean, FollowESports really was doing an amazing job. I was expecting Tempo Storm to take that last round a lot faster, which is what we almost saw right from the start.
Yeah, their opening pressure was really great, and then we've got a power outage. I don't know if you can still hear me, but I'm going to talk to you like you can. We're going to deal with these problems that have been coming.
So again, it's 1-1. It's 1-1 right now on Tolvaron, and with the gates almost opening, we'll have to see if this match is still going to happen or not. It's possible you guys are watching it, and we can.
Yeah, it's possible that you're seeing it, so we can pretend that right now that Tempo Storm's got a lot of pressure rolling onto Astrage's team, which I would expect unless this problem is occurring with them as well. But this series, nonetheless, regardless of technical delay, has been an awesome
It really
one.
has. It really has. Like the when we go into these tournaments and we talk about how amazing all these teams are, and then when we go into these first matches, like this is a third match of the day, and it's this high quality. It's awesome. I love that seeing that these teams are so well prepared that they know what to expect from the enemy team. And while we deal with this power issue, we're just going to go to a short break so we can bring the games back to you guys.
You'll often see players focusing their attacks into one member of an enemy team, only to change their target to a different player as soon as the enemy team uses defensive cooldowns to keep the first target alive. This strategy is called swapping and is often the key to landing a kill in an arena. If multiple cooldowns are used to keep one player alive, they won't be available for their teammate, making them a much easier target. For more examples of team compositions and strategies, visit worldofwarcraft.com and navigate over to the Arena forums. Abilities with long cooldowns between each use are powerful in arenas. Lining up offensive cooldowns can lead to a large burst of damage on an enemy, to score a kill, or force them to use defensive cooldowns. For that reason, the strategic use of defensive cooldowns can often be the deciding factor in a match. If the player uses too many defensive abilities too early, they'll leave themselves vulnerable to heavy burst damage afterward. If they don't use enough, they could die before their team has a chance to save them. Keeping track of the timers on cooldowns and taking note of which tools the opposing team has used is a skill you'll see regularly from the best players in the arena. For more examples of team compositions and strategies, visit worldofwarcraft.com and navigate over to the Arena forums.
All right, welcome back again. I do apologize for the delay, and what a match to have the delay on. And when it's this close, 1-1 again, we're going to be going right back into Tolvaron Arena once the teams are. It looks like the queue has started from both teams, so we'll have to see if these teams are ready. There we go, queuing in for Tolvaron Arena. Again, if you're just tuning in, this is 1-1 right now from both Tempo Storm and FollowESports. And if you are just tuning in, I feel really bad for you because you missed 2 incredible games to get to where we are right now.
Yeah, but you will have a second chance here. This is game number 3 between Tempo Storm and FollowESports. The loser of this will have to battle it out with only one more chance to stay in the tournament. The winner will have that winner's bracket advantage, where they have another chance. So definitely neither team wanting to lose here. Now we can see that FollowESports was the underdog for this series, but they're playing excellently, even taking a game off a Titan team like Tempo Storm. Can they do it again?
Yeah, it was really exciting when I saw on Dalaran Sewers that the momentum started rolling in FollowESports' favor, and it's just great to see this team just capitalize on every little mistake that Tempo Storm is making.
Yeah, and you really need to capitalize on mistakes when you're fighting a composition like Rogue Mage Druid. You've got to find every opening of opportunity to attack and punch through, and they did a great job on Dalaran Arena. Now the map selection for Tempo Storm is Tolvaron Arena, which is a much bigger and scarier place to combat Rogue Mage Druid. You're going to get kited into the open. Walter Barrett not falling for the bait, though, always pulling back to the pillar when he needs to, and Tempo Storm are basically trying to fish Walter Barrett out of the water and isolate him if they want to take this game. So far, we can see the RMD playing fairly patiently, not even going for the sap just yet, maybe trying to take a chance to find Walter, but he's positioned very far back in the corner. They're not going to find him. Sap onto Absterge. They have to open onto Vossel. I wonder if they're going to commit to this. A capacitor totem was laid down by Absterge, and that's going to deny all of the damage coming out from Peekaboo, and he's going to get chunked down to half HP. Starship has to recall here, and he's going to actually swap to Walter, popping the Incarnation very early on, and we see FollowESports taking a bit of a commanding lead on cooldowns. Peekaboo down to half. Ironbark has to be traded out. Vossel now popping that Dark Soul alongside that Incarnation to get some pressure rolling. When that Bart skin fades, if they're able to swap onto Starship, it could be a scary one for him.
It definitely is, and Vossel lived through that, not having to use too many cooldowns. Didn't have to use his Dark Regen, anything like that. That Stampeding Roar lets them chase Jamili down. He's down to half right now, but Starship able to toss out those heals, getting those Genesis huge hots up, as Jamili is starting to toss out some crowd control, as it looks like, wow, Walter Bear already realizing that he is going to be targeted, is using that Savage Defense already.
Yeah, we see Absterge actually going in for Lava Burst, but we see Tempo Storm just rotating back, playing very patiently, realizing they need that Shadow Dance burst from Peekaboo to get the kill. So they're pulling back for now. We see full bleeds onto Peekaboo. Jamili moving forward. He's got full icicles. He chooses to unleash them with that full blind onto Absterge, clone onto Vossel, 3v1 situation onto Walter. We see him in full retreat right now, but there's the Shadow Step into Sap onto Absterge. Walter has no trinket. He has no survival instincts left in the tank. He uses the Hellstone. He's trying to mitigate that physical damage coming through. Absterge is still sitting through a clone. He's down to 5%, barely connects the Spirit Link, and Vossel as well, getting in time. Jamili now down to half, but has 2 ice blocks available. They're not going to be able to pressure him out. They're forced to attack Peekaboo, and I feel like that's the least likely target they want to be hitting.
It definitely is, but they have to do something with all this damage. The Shadow Dance comes out as the evasion also, and they're going to go on Absterge with this as he gets extremely low. We see him using that Hellstone, using everything to stay alive as the Garrote landed also. So much damage going out onto him. I like that they're just going to push right through it. Wow.
He got gouged on the Aura Mastery heal, and despite Walter landing a clone onto Peekaboo, Jamili is going to finish the job, using that Ice Block offensively, knowing when to time it. And Tempo Storm, they got close when we saw this match played earlier, and this time they were able to execute it, which means that they take the lead 2-1 over FollowESports. Congratulations to Tempo Storm and FollowESports. They've got to battle it out with only one more chance to remain in the tournament.
Yeah, that was an exciting match, and what we're going to do is we're going to go talk to Bajira and see what he saw during that last match.
Wow, what a way to end that series. It seemed like at last Tempo Storm found the weakness that they were looking for. Instead of training Wallabear, instead of putting that pressure on Vossel, they forced cooldowns, swapped it over to Absterge, and they did it with like half and quarter CCs, finishing up with a gouge. So we're going to take a look at this replay. Look at how short the CCs are that actually allowed them to score the kill on Absterge. So Walter Bear is down to a sliver of HP, nails a beautiful Spirit Link, but here's the final half cheap shot into what is the next tiny little CC into a gouge that broke that, and that finally ended with Absterge unfortunately going down. However, you got to keep in mind that FollowESports are not out of this tournament yet. They do have their chance to battle back into potentially even a BlizzCon spot, but you got to know that that's not the way they wanted that match to go. But Tempo Storm has got to be happy. After a little bit of delay, props to them for being the tournament players that they are, hanging in there, and we're actually going to be talking to them pretty soon. But before we do that, I'm going to send it back to the casters and get this interview set up.
All right, thank you again, Bajira. And what an amazing match that came down to the last moments. And of course, that incredible onslaught onto Absturge. Great gouge by Peekaboo. I mean, everyone's talking about how great of a rogue Peekaboo is. Seals the deal with that. And with the offensive block from Jamili, it's just a great series of events that led to that shaman kill. Because shortly before that, they almost killed Walter through everything.
Yeah, they definitely came very close. But I believe we do have an interview set up with the team captain, from my understanding, Elite. He didn't play in that series, but he's got to be happy. Bajira, let's go.
That is correct. We are joined by team captain of Tempo Storm, Mr. Elite himself. I mean, what did you have to do backstage to keep your team focused, to keep them positive, and allow you guys to push forward in this tournament?
Yeah, so my teammates were getting a bit antsy back there, so I had to make sure that I was keeping them entertained back there, because they were getting pretty tired back there. They're hungry too, so we were back there for a while, so I made sure they're good to go.
Yeah, the good thing that their hunger for food didn't overcome their hunger for the win. So you got to be proud of that performance. Now, that was not an easy series. Mm-hmm. Do you think that that's going to be one of the most intense challenges you face? So maybe things get easier from now on?
Yeah, actually, we really weren't expecting the games to go that way. We kind of felt that we had an advantage in some sort of ways. But after the matches started playing out, I was getting a little bit worried, because we weren't really like playing as we normally do. So seeing how these games were, I think we were probably we're a little bit rusty right now. But I think this game is probably one of the most challenging ones for us as of right now. But going ahead, seeing that we're probably facing Meta next, they're definitely be a really good challenge for us.
Yeah, so if that was rusty, the rest of the teams better look out, because you guys looked pretty sharp out there. So keep in mind that we have tons more arena matches for you guys to see. We'll be seeing Tempo Storm once again a little bit later on, but for right now, we're going to throw it to a quick break and get back to the action after that. Thank you.
All of us have been good friends for quite a while now, maybe 3 or 4 years now.
Really good synergy.
The reason we're definitely feeling really good right now for our team is because we have probably 2 or 3 of the strongest comps that we believe that are in the game right now. We have Rogue Mage Druid. We also have God comp, which is Shadow Priest. We're definitely one of the best teams and the favorites with that. Jamili's probably one of the best multi-clashers in the game. At least in North America, I'd probably say he's probably one of the best multi-clashers right now at the moment, because he has the ability to play his Shaman, he could play Shadow Priest, he could also play a Rogue. We don't really need him on his Rogue, obviously, in this team setup. As far as multi-classing goes, he's probably one of the best.
It's usually my fault if we lose or win, so